Okay.
Joyce.
The regular way?
Yeah. You remind me so much of a friend of mine. She lives in San Diego. Your smile and your speech. If I close my eyes.
Oh, really?
Best job I ever had was
My best job is
The best job I ever had, without a doubt, was
My best job was probably working as a corporate recruiter.
being a painter because I get to do it at my own time and I get to paint, which is the most wonderful thing in the world.
I got to ride a motorcycle 8 hours a day, delivering packages all over the east side for $5 an hour. Not a lot of money, but it was the most fun I ever had working.
Probably one of the best jobs I ever had was teaching calligraphy, actually an advanced calligraphy class to juniors and seniors at Lake Washington High School.
The neatest job I ever had was driving an ice cream truck in the neighborhoods and, ringing the bell and having the little music, and all these children would come out. It was like all day long I would go out and 500 of my favorite little friends would come out to visit me neighborhood after neighborhood. It was the best.
But best job is the job I'm in at the moment, which is I do work for Microsoft, and I've been there for 13 years, and I absolutely adore it.
Let's see, I love to work at Edgerton, Alaska, pouring drinks, bartending, and that was really super fun.
My best job is being the husband
Oh,
to my
you're
beautiful
so funny.
wife.
My best job has been freelance editing.
Best job is what I'm doing right now, tutoring and teaching kids one-on-one.
I get to teach yoga, and I get to play with essential oils, so it really is. It's the most fun job I've ever had.
doing the distribution strategy for United Distillers, the biggest whiskey and gin and whatever. So I stayed in Scottish country house hotels, making my way through the whiskey collection in the interest of understanding the product.
Actually, I'm sorry, being a mother is actually the most fun job I've ever had, but this one is less stressful, shall we say.
Being in the Peace Corps in West Africa, because I got to live in another culture and while doing something good for the world.
One of my very best jobs was working for Tom. Back in the 1970s here in Seattle, the Garrett Corporation.
The best job by far was working at the San Jose Mercury News. I was a special sections editor, and I loved my boss. He was this little leprechaun of a man, and he was just such a gentleman. Even if I made a mistake, he would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't explain it to you well."
Probably the summer I spent hooting for spotted owls with the Forest Service.
I think of it in terms of bosses, best and worst boss, and the best boss I ever had a boat and would take me out in the boat on weekends and things like that.
Being Steve Burns' boss. Because it's so easy to copy what he's saying. But I did it for like 40 years. And he doesn't even look 40, does he? Yeah, right.
My best job as a young person, I worked for an organization in Anchorage, Alaska called the Alaska Native, or Bering Straits Native Corporation.
The best job I have now, I'm development director for Homeward Pet Adoption Center. It's nonprofit, but I have tangible results every day where I see I'm actually making a difference in the community. Thank you.
I had the worst job in the world. I just hated it.
My worst job.
I think the worst job was when I got dumped into a job on banking.
The worst job that I had.
The worst job, I was actually, I was living in Stockton. I was a student, and I got a phone call on my day off. I was waiting tables, but my day off, they called me from the cannery. And the cannery was a great job because it paid a lot of money. It was like $12 an hour. So I went to the cannery, and they gave me an apron, and they put me on the conveyor belt, and you're supposed to pick off tomatoes and put the good ones here and the green ones there and the runt ones there. And I worked at that with this deafening noise for about 2 hours. And then this alarm, this loud alarm rang, and everyone stopped. The conveyor belt stopped, and I thought, I don't have to do this. I already have a job. So I turned in my apron and I left. I never did that again.
I worked for a summer at the West Point Sewage Treatment Plant in Discovery Park and had to spend a week in a little rowboat in the settling ponds, scraping the scum off the side of the settling ponds. and it was quite a remarkable experience, and we'll leave it at that.
The worst job I had when I was teaching piano, I was in college, and I was teaching some gentleman, and he wanted me, instead of teaching piano, he wanted me to accompany him when he sang.
Oh, he couldn't sing.
And that was rather painful.
And the worst job I ever had was delivering newspapers I was about 12, 13 years old and I got the job in the winter in Dublin, and I had to deliver through a neighborhood that wasn't particularly safe.
Working at a fish and chip shop on Friday nights for my extra pocket money, and that was the night that President Kennedy was assassinated. So that's an evening that stands out in my mind, and I happened to be in England in a fish and chip shop at the time.
And my worst job, I've actually liked all my jobs, but my worst job, if I had to pick one, was my second job. I was working on the Bellevue Municipal Golf Course, and my boss was, what's the word? He had a psychological disorder, but I didn't know that. And so he used to come out and talk, say mean things to me, like, you're a rotten worker. I don't know why I ever hired you. You do a terrible job. And that was kind of difficult because I was 18.
Well, Karen said her worst job was sorting envelopes, but I beg to differ because I worked with her at a job in Phoenix, Arizona in 1980. The both of us worked in an office, and we had the boss from hell.
I was in college and I got a job as an internship job for an advertising agency, which sounds great, and it was. It was supposed to be really cool. And then the woman who hired me left, and I went to the advertising agency, and I didn't get the cool job. I was stuck in an interior office running numbers. That's like the worst thing you could possibly do to me.
I had a job for Credit Consultants Corporation, and they promised one amount of money on the interview call, and when I got there and they offered me the job, it was a lot less. If I wanted the job, he had never intended to honor what the posted amount was at the UW campus. And I had to arrive 15 minutes early, no pay. I had to sit during lunch at my desk, and minimal amount of bathroom breaks. The job entailed answering phones and being a receptionist. One day when he absolutely, the main boss, stopped the whole operation of the whole office because he lost his pink pearl eraser.
When I worked at a little restaurant in Maine, and there wasn't a lot of business. It was pretty slow. I'd work lunches, and there'd be like 2 people or 3 people that would show up, and so they had a chef that would work every day, but then on his day off, the owner would be the chef. But he had a little bit of a problem. He used to go out the back door of the kitchen and smoke something illegal, and then he'd come back in pretty happy. And so one day he just disappeared for like an hour, and then of course that's the day that like 8 people came in right after he left, and I had to cook him lunch. And I didn't really know how to do it. I knew how to cook, but not really where all the ingredients were and everything, so I did the best I could. I think it was pretty awful. But when he came back, I just told him, I'm not working again if you're the cook. I'm only working for the chef.
A job that I had in high school for one day, and it was telephone sales. And I think I've never been hung up on so many times. It triggered all my rejection issues, and I never went back again.
My worst job was working for a dentist. Talking about dentists having a high suicide rate, and I think it was just really clever dental assistants masking homicide.
So my worst job was right over here at the Kirkland Custom Cannery, where we can people's fish, and people would bring in their fish, and it could have been 10 years old, covered in freezer burn, and we'd have to cut it up in this hot building with a whole bunch of bees around and stuff it in little cans, and it was pretty gross. So I never looked forward to going to work there. It was pretty awful.